Hello, Group 3. You have chosen the little red inner child. So thanks for stopping by. I'm going to go ahead and start off with I'm going to be pulling some other little parents to kind of show what your childhood dynamic was like that might help with addressing this inner child wound. Then I'm going to go ahead and pull some cards so we can get some clarification on what's all going on. So let me see. Right off the bat, I feel like for you, Group 3, the first word I kind of have coming to me is numb. I have a feeling like this group you're going to be kind of in a state of getting a wake up call. I have a feeling there's a lot of you that either the first word I got was skeptical. Either I don't know if you're skeptical of me or about what your inner wound is, or maybe you are currently in a space where you're not entirely sure what's kind of going on. But I have a feeling it's going to come out, and yeah, have fun with that. So, all right, so let me go ahead and pick little people for your parents. So we've got, here's one for your father, and one for your mother. Let's see. All right, so you got like a nice little blonde lady. Okay. So just keep in mind that these are general readings, so what is going on here may apply to some of you, maybe not all of you. And typically, though, the general energies of what's actually kind of happening tends to, be reflective of what's going on. So this might not necessarily be your family dynamic, but the energy may still apply to you. So I have a feeling the first word I heard was distance. So I feel like you have a distant relationship with your parents, almost like, no, that's not it. Or your parents are distant. So I don't know if either you are a child of divorced parents. Yeah, okay, that's definitely what I'm getting. Is I have a feeling that there's definitely some kind of a, oh god, we're just gonna, got this little item right here. There's like this thing that happened. I can't tell when your parents got divorced. Either for a majority of you it was when you were a child, maybe younger, or for some of you it happened when you were a bit older, but definitely there's some kind of a family. The first word I heard was mess, but pattern is also kind of this, where I don't know if it's something with your family dynamic where people don't tend to stick around long, either within your life or something about like the family where marriages don't last, or there's a sense of like impermanence and instability that's kind of going on with your within your family system. So even if it wasn't exactly your parents, there's definitely a pattern within your family of either, I'm hearing a lot of like rejection of healthy relationships or rejecting of other family members whenever something does not fit within a certain type of quota. I don't know if you guys had a. I'm hearing something about idealized, so this might be a family dynamic where people are trying to keep up with appearances. Either keep up with appearances or they're trying to live up to an ideal that someone in their family set. I'm hearing either I'm hearing actually a matriarch for some of you, where there's a woman figure that is really kind of trying to lay the groundwork where you want a better family, but it's coming through in a very distorted way. And so, yeah, I have a feeling like even though maybe you are a child of divorce or parents that are just emotionally divorced, that could be the dynamic too, if they're not technically in a literal sense. But due to whatever's going on with this dynamic, you were kind of pushed off to kind of doing your own thing. And I have a feeling either you're a bit of a loner, You have a tendency to surround yourself with people but not actually attached to them fully. It's kind of like again, I'm getting this numbness vibe of like you're kind of floating in this little void over here, and you're like, well, I'm just gonna go and off and do my own thing. Forget whatever's going on right here. I'm just gonna sit and play by myself, and that's exactly how I'm gonna be. And I'm perfectly happy like this, even though really you're kind of not. But that's what you're at least telling yourself. And I feel like also too, though, you have a tendency to be very disrespectful or resentful of your parents, either from something that they did. Some of it's justified, some of it's not, because of just feeling this void and disconnection. You have a tendency to not reflect inward very often or well, because every time you take a look inward, it's either something about your parental dynamic dissuades you from it because you don't want to look and see the negative parts of yourself. And also, I almost feel though that whenever you do look inwards, it's very distorted due to whatever was kind of happening in this dynamic here. So even when you do go within, it's either way too self-critical or it's not even real reflections of yourself. I feel like you might be someone who's very entangled with other family members, either energetically or emotionally, and you don't realize it. But this lack of being able to go inward prevents you from being able to face some of your shadow aspects. And so with this inner child wound, it's being able to fundamentally reconnect with yourself, but also other people, and particularly your parents. Like, I feel like whenever I turn this child around, I get like this feeling on my back where there's a lot of resistance to actually viewing your parents for who they actually are and what the dynamic was actually doing. Instead of, sorry, that was my cat in the back. But for who they actually are and what the situation is, because again, you were feeling very left out, very secluded, and I'm just hearing like kind of torn. Especially now that, like, again, there's like this, it's almost like it goes from like numbness to anger to pain to then you interject yourself into the mess. So that's kind of the inner wound you're kind of going with right here. So let's go ahead and pull some cards to kind of, you know, see how this is affecting you mentally and the different aspects of yourself. Again, maybe it wasn't necessarily your parents, but specifically family in general. I feel like you've got a lot of bitterness towards them. And so working through that bitterness is going to be part of your process. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Jungian Tarot, and we're going to kind of look at what is kind of the overarching theme or archetype of your inner child wound. So overarching theme. Alright, so let's take a look here, and we've got the Four of Swords. So I'm going to pull out my little booklet here and see what kind of dynamic is going on there. So we've got imagination, and it says energies among the most positive of deck. Imagination as key to human progress. Creative vision carries civilization forward. Friendship, mysticism, journeying into unconscious possibilities and bringing back ideas and images that affect daily life. If negative, a secret treachery or inability to focus ideas. So, particularly with this card, I feel like you're very imaginative, and this can be... and I feel like for you in particular, imagination is not necessarily the same form of, like, traditional creativity. I feel like some of this imagination is dreams you have about yourself as well as how you kind of view the world. So, and some of you are probably escapists, but in terms of not being one with reality, but I have a feeling though in this distorted state, this is also, again, heavily disillusioned, not being able to really have a tight grasp with reality because, again, in order to protect yourself when you were a child, you had to completely detach yourself from the dynamic that was going on. And because you've been within yourself for so long, you have a hard time even being able to look outside of yourself and see things for what they are because you can't see them inwardly either. So that's kind of something to keep in mind with this reading going forward. I feel like a couple of you are very intrigued because you're like, what? This is news to me. And I'm like, oh, buddy. I hope that this reading helps you because there's going to be... I have a feeling there's maybe a dam that's going to be bursting here at some point once you actually kind of face what's going on. But, alright, so I'm going to pull some internal family systems cards to kind of get an idea of what pieces of yourself are affected by this inner child wound. So... Alright, so... anything else? Is that it? Okay. Alright, so it's a little less than some of my other readings, but okay, so you've got 3 cards here. So let's see what inner parts are affected. Ooh. How interesting. So this inner child wound is affecting you in the sense that there's this what's the word I'm kind of looking for? This unrestricted joy and being able to fully embrace and enjoy life. Like there's a piece of you that is busting with happiness and wants to go out and, you know, live your fullest life. And this inner child wound is preventing you from being able to see, one, who this person actually is. I have a feeling that you don't really know who you are on the inside. And this is kind of a card that's reaffirming that you have this wonderful side of yourself that you don't even see. Again, it's almost like, because I'm seeing like with this white dress, and again with one of the cards being white, I feel like it's kind of like a blank slate. Like you've kind of had not many opportunities to actually create who you are as a person because you've been stuck in this state of just kind of replaying other people's views or replaying other versions of yourself that your family projected onto you. And understanding that being able to tap into this, you got to look for what this looks like for you and not anybody else. I'm going to skip that blank card for a second, but there's this card here that I also find interesting. Is it's this child that's crippled and has these little walker canes, and she's got some animals next to her. Her legs have a hard time walking, and she's smiling, and she's got little hearts on her dress. And with this card, I have a feeling there's this piece of you that you need a little bit extra support. One, I have a feeling that you really, since you have such a hard time connecting with people, you are especially drawn towards animals and nature as ways of being able to cope with your inability to really fully connect with people. So if you kind of notice that you lean more in those areas, that's probably a reason why, is because like this disconnect with being able to attach to your family plays out in your other dynamics, especially in the work environment for a few of you. But this inner child part that needs a little bit of extra support, you know, is something that you should keep in mind that, you know, whenever you're trying to push yourself, I feel like because you have a tendency to be disconnected from how you're truly feeling, you're not able to see this side of yourself that needs additional support. And maybe you have some either health issues or mental health issues or other things that are going on that I feel like you're kind of in denial of, but please make sure that the piece of you that needs that support, you give it to yourself in forms of self-care, emotionally, physically, those types of things. So, going to this blank card, though, again, it's that feeling of nothingness, this feeling of there's pieces of you that, one, this deck probably doesn't have accurate representation of, or two, this is a piece of yourself that it's literally a blank slate. There's pieces of you that, you know, they feel like nothing, or they're appearing as nothing to you because you can't see them yet, or you're not giving yourself a space for it. So maybe taking some time to really detach for a while and kind of do that inner work to start looking around. I think this is kind of a warning sign to maybe start taking that introspective step because and it may be difficult for you, but highly, highly recommend maybe talking to a therapist about this one to help detangle your inner world because I feel like there's some stuff in there that I'm not going to be able to touch this in this general reading. However, definitely talking to someone might give you some clarity on what's kind of going on here. Because again, I almost have a feeling too like there's like a secret. Either you're keeping a secret from yourself, or maybe it's something that you're just lacking awareness of. Um, that's going to be really important for your healing of this inner child wound. Um, Yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm almost like at a loss for words throughout your whole reading because it's almost like this weird, like, just I lose sense of myself whenever I'm tapping into this energy, or that's what the energy's kind of saying. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and pull some cards for words that your inner child has to say to you. So let's see here. Anything else? Okay, yeah, you're gonna get a lot of messages here. Anything else? Okay. Wow. Okay, you got a bunch of cards here, so clearly, there's a lot of inner dialogue that is needing to be had that really before was not. There's not a lot of language. Yeah, I almost feel like, again, with some of this, it's like a difficulty being able to communicate with yourself as well. So, again, might be either dealing with some kind of a disability, mental illness, maybe not having the appropriate ability to connect with yourself just yet. I feel like that's playing a factor here and what's addressing this. So, okay. Okay. Yeah. There's like some kind of a nasty energy kind of attached to this, but like it's not like an evil type thing. It's more of like there's like a hidden wound that's kind of underlaying some of these messages. So I'm gonna try to be conscious of that while I'm reading these. So the cards in order of that you got was the first one is I've been here before with others. You can't come with me. I hope I will see you again sometime. You're so easy to see through. I focus on you instead of my pain. I was careless with you. I do wish you well. So I feel like now that I kind of read those out loud and I'm feeling the energy, I feel like that initial negative energy I was feeling was, it's almost like you've got some bitterness towards yourself that you're not really willing to face. Like that's why there's a lot of this numbness because of not being able to cope with that prior situation. And so just even some of these cards, like while reading them, I kind of felt like it was like on the back of my tongue where there's this kind of an angry piece of you that is kind of throwing these negative emotions towards you. So maybe you have a tendency to self-depreciate yourself, um, either towards just general emotions or just whatever you're doing. But I feel like that's where some of these messages are coming from. And so I want to be able to come from a place of like a healthier child that, understanding that just because your inner self is having negative dialogues, I think being able to address that first does not mean that all of you is you're not necessarily a negative person. It could just be that that is what is manifesting out of the wound. So like for this first card, I've been here before with others. I have a feeling like, again, this struggling to connect with other people, um, again, whenever you're feeling this resentment towards your parents, I feel like you're not maybe fully aware of this, but this dynamic with your parents and resentment plays out roles in your relationships, especially romantic relationships for a couple of you, where you don't even realize what you're doing to other people, that sometimes maybe you do hurt other people subconsciously because you're so caught up in this self-hating cycle that, and caught up in this dynamic that happened in the past, that you don't even know how your actions are affecting people outside of you. And I feel like also, again, if it's not you also subconsciously doing things to other people, I feel like it's also you're getting abandoned by people too. Like, on the flip side, I feel like you are not always aware of when other people are treating you negatively because of this lack of inner awareness and, again, this resentment towards yourself that is preventing you or allowing you to go into these relationships where you're not receiving what you need. And so your inner child is telling you, saying, hey, this keeps happening. I want you to start paying attention to that it's happening outside of me and other people's actions are affecting me in some way. So that might be something you want to take some time to reflect on. And then you can't come with me. I have a feeling that this message is about letting go, that there's a few of you, actually a majority of the people in this reading, that have a hard time letting go of things in the past. Whether it be old grudges, it could be emotional attachments, like with romantic partners or with outcomes or ideas of who you are. This inner child is trying to tell you that you can't carry all this stuff and move forward. You can't keep bringing this old stuff in the past and then expect to have a new outcome in the future. Like, it's almost like preventing you and making you stuck. And it's asking you to please start letting some of this go because it doesn't serve you to hold on to those negative emotions, or not even negative emotions, just sometimes this, I